Hi, Jeremy. So good to see you, brother. You and I,
Derek,
we've
good to
been
see you.
longtime yoga teachers and managed to maintain a at-home practice, though that's not necessarily a given for many people over this dispersion of over the last couple years now. And I, I'm I'd like for us to vet out or discuss how people can, reorient into yoga. That's probably been very meaningful for them at some point, but how to um, where do we go from here, or provide some guidance or instruction or encouragement around developing yoga practice or reconnecting with it.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme, certainly that I've been experiencing and going back to a studio where students have come back saying, this is my first class back. Many of them saying, I haven't practiced since the pandemic started, so they lost any home practice if they did have one or perhaps didn't have one. And some of that has to do with the challenges people were facing, and there's still some hesitancy of coming back to the studios because people have concern of safety. And I think, regardless of those reasons, there's, as we come back to practice, we start to recognize perhaps what's been missing and the importance of practice. We start to feel that anchor point or that place of stability that we had lost, and realize the necessity of, building some momentum in that. And of course, there's obstacles that show up, with maintaining a consistent practice. And for a lot of people, having the container of an in-person studio to practice with and a teacher that leads them through everything is just is more stable for that.
Yeah, and there's lots of, I mean, it's easy to forget the merit of practice, like an old friendship, say, some
Totally.
time goes by and I didn't call David, and I kind of forget about my love for David, and it's okay. It's like David's still alive and over there, which brings me some consolation, but it's not the same thing as having an active relationship with him, or being engaged, or something like
Totally.
that. Or, with any, I just use a friend that I'm trying to reach out to recently. And so it's easy to kind of forget, or in lieu of doing it, like kind of like the idea of doing yoga is tantamount, or might think that it's sufficient, but it's not really the same thing. And I think one barrier or obstacle people have in that is to assume that it needs to be this glorified 90-minute practice, or even that they need a studio necessarily, or the right pants, or the right mat, or all these outer obstacles, when in fact yoga is much more, at its core, much more simple than that. All you really need fundamentally is a body and a breath and a mind and a bit of willingness, and you can practice anywhere at any time. And that's kind of the beauty of it, the universality of it. So what I would offer people is that, maybe the grand project of a 90-minute practice or 2 hours or getting to the studio is not really to scale with the reality of your life, or at least not right now as a starting point. And to, start small, take whatever you think you can do and then chop that in half, and in favor of building consistency. So maybe it's even 15 minutes of meditation. And what's more, as another suggestion or path way of doing it, is to build your practice into existing structure. So maybe you have a nighttime going to bed routine or regimen, something like that you could already roll it into that pattern or habit that's already in place. Or something I commonly do is when I drive somewhere or ride my bike there, and I take some dedicated time, a few minutes, just to self-reflect and gather myself, and remind myself of who I truly am, and my connection to life, and do that through centered abdominal breathing, perhaps a prayer, something like that. And the idea is to build it into existing patterns and habits so that it's available. right? And with that, with some dedication, it starts to take on a life of its own, and we find ways of letting go of some things that are not as important in order to create space for truly what is more important. And with some degree of consistency, it starts to take on a life of its own. And part of that happens naturally, and much of that happens by intent as well. So it's a few suggestions to help people reconnect. So.
And that's an important point because, I'm hearing a lot in the neuroscience circles, the importance of even just taking moments to pause in between actions, in between activities, like you said, arriving somewhere, just creating this interruption in this active problem-solving brain state will bring in a sense of ease, spaciousness, awareness, where we can create this habit of shifting the quality of our experience regularly.
Yeah. Like social media is not really quality downtime so much.
Right.
Like there's
Still actively
going
taking
on,
in,
unpacking, taking stuff in, processing. I like that. I don't like it. Like that hasn't shut off. But
right.
to walk from one end of the parking lot to wherever your destination is and take the stairs and cultivate some mindfulness in that whole process, it is an act of renewal and presence into itself, which are all very much yogic virtues. It's, let's say there was a bank, right? And at this bank, they every day they had this amazing special, and where you could bring $1 into the bank and they'd give you $3 back. Like, wouldn't you like that kind of return? That's my kind of bank. And it feels similar to that with yoga practice, in that whatever unit of resistance or challenge or time that we invest in the process, both in the immediate and even more so in the long term, there's like 3 units of loving value that are reciprocated or returned. I mean, Krishna says in Gita that if no effort is ever wasted, and that even a little bit of this practice will shelter you, in his words, shelter you from great sorrow. So it's a very noble and worthy endeavor. And yes, there's obstacles and challenges. Work with where you're at, and it doesn't have to be like this monumental thing. You can integrate it into your existing life practices, and even in a short bit, begin to develop some consistency in your own practice, whether it's 10, 15 minutes. The duration is less important as the consistency or just getting your reps in, right? Like any skill that it gets developed. You want to learn the violin, you put in some time. Yeah,
absolutely.
And you have some resources for people too. I mean, this isn't some like huge sell or anything, but you just have, by way
free resources.
Of support. Yeah.
Free resources.
What
No
is
sell
that?
at all.
Yeah.
On Insight Timer, which is an app you can get on your phone, I've got 2 free 15-minute meditations and also a free yoga nidra, which is 30 minutes. So if people have the window and they're looking for, what do I insert into this time? What can I do? These are very simple practices that will start to build a foundation for regulating your own breath and sensory experience, so that you can more self-regulate your relationship to the world and the challenges that you're facing, as opposed to being in a state of reaction to them.
That's great. And we have a not free offering coming up as well. It's actually as close to free as we can get. It's called on a pay what you can basis, a workshop on the gunas, which is this whole philosophical precept that dovetails with so many yogic principles, and really for someone looking to lift the fold beyond just simply asana and understand kind of the deeper cosmology of where asana comes from and how it's put together, and how to apply work with your asana more intelligently. This could be really valuable, and we'll put a link somewhere around here where you can find out more of those details, and we'll throw the Insight Timer thing in there as well. Blessings, my friend.
Awesome.
So great to see you, and glad we got to share.
Likewise, Derek. Always enjoy our conversations.
Yep. On, brother.